Welcome to your second lesson in Scratch.
I have a sequence here that we should be familiar with from last week's lesson, and usually to start it we would just click on one of the blocks. But with events, this can occur automatically when the green flag is clicked, when a sprite is clicked, or when the spacebar or any other key is pressed. We'll go over the first three events today. With this block, when the green flag is clicked, the same sequence of events will occur without having to click on any one of the blocks. This can be useful if you're working with more than one sprite that needs to be moving at the same time, or if you want more than one sequence to occur. A similar thing applies when a key is pressed. The default is the spacebar here, but it can be changed to any arrow, any key, or any letters or numbers. In this case, I'm going to keep it with the spacebar. So when I press the spacebar on my keyboard, the sequence will start automatically. The last section we will review in the events section today is when the sprite is clicked. In this case, it is specific to the sprite, so make sure the sprite that you want to move or to follow the sequence is selected in the menu down here. I have added a second sprite to demonstrate this, making sure that the cat is selected. Click on the sprite in the stage and the sequence will occur. You can also copy the sequence from one sprite into another sprite by dragging it into the menu underneath the stage. So if I were to click on the second sprite here, the sequence from the cat is now also applied to the apple. In this case, I want to select the apple and make it do the sequence, but if I were to select the cat, the same sequence would occur since I copied the sequence from the cat to the apple. Let's move on to looks blocks. Looks are distinguished by purple blocks and can be used to edit and change backdrops and sprites, add effects to sprites, and control thoughts and dialogue. The first two that we'll go over are speech blocks. The default for these blocks is to say hello, but this can be changed to whatever you choose. Use the Say Hello block when a specific sprite is selected to make a speech bubble appear with the text when the program is running. The difference between this block and the Say Hello for 2 seconds is that this block will make the message appear indefinitely unless another block is used to stop it. And there you can see that there is a speech bubble that appears indefinitely when we use this block. If we were to use the Say Hello for 2 seconds, the message would eventually disappear after 2 seconds have passed. Following the same logic as speech blocks, think blocks have customized messages and timings for whatever your sprite is thinking. The difference between think blocks and speech blocks is that with think blocks, there will be a thought bubble, whereas speech blocks will have a speech bubble. As with the speech blocks, if there is a specified amount of time that can be customized, the message will disappear after the amount of time, and if there isn't, then the message will appear indefinitely, unless another block is used to stop it. Let's review how to view and edit costumes for our sprite. In the Costume tab, we have 2 costumes for this sprite. It can be used to change the appearance or position of our sprite, but for right now, we just need to worry about the name of each costume for the portion. With a Switch Costume block, we need to specify which costume we want to change to, and in this case it will be Costume 2, so that when the sequence runs, the costume will change to whatever it was that we specified. In cases where there may be more than 2 costumes, next costume can also be used to switch to whatever the next costume is in the chronological order that we chose it in the Costume tab. In this case, it switched back to the original costume since there are only 2 costumes for this sprite. I've pre-selected a few different backdrops to demonstrate. In order to switch backdrops, we need to select which backdrop we want to switch to. In this case, I'm going to choose the Arctic background, so that when the sequence runs, the background will switch to the Arctic backdrop when we specify. You can also use this block to select next backdrop from the drop-down menu, as well as previous backdrop, or a random backdrop from the ones that you have selected. Similar to the next costume block, the next backdrop will simply go to the next backdrop that you've saved in chronological order. We can change the size of a sprite using increments or on a percent scale. We can use the change size by 10 block in order to change a size by a certain increment, which can be changed. In this case, I'll change it to 20. And we can see that our sprite has increased in size from before the sequence started. Note that in order to decrease the size of the sprite, we need to input a negative value. We can also set the size to a specific percent. Setting the size to 100% will revert the sprite back to the default size that we have from the costume tab. Values greater than 100, such as 150, will increase the size of the sprite, and values less than 100, like 50, will decrease the size of the sprite. Graphic effects will change the appearance of the selected sprite based on a set of possible effects to choose from. These include changing color, brightness, and other effects such as fisheye, whirl, pixelate, mosaic, and ghost. In order to set an effect to a specific intensity, use the set effect to, in this case, 0, but that can be changed. And I'm going to change it to 20. And then in the drop down, we're going to stick with color, but remember that you can choose any one of the other effects that are on here. So now I can see that my sprite has changed color. Let's try out a few different effects to see. We have fisheye, which will distort the sprite, whirl, pixelate, mosaic, brightness, and ghost. Notice how all of these effects layered on top of each other instead of disappearing before we could see the effect on the original sprite. In order to revert a sprite back to its original appearance, we would use the Clear Graphic Effects block, which will revert our sprite back to normal. We can also change the color or any other effect by a certain increment, so that if we were to repeat the sequence, the effect would continue to change. The ghost effect refers to the opacity of the sprite that is selected. In order to decrease the amount of an effect, we need to input a negative value. In this case, I'll use -25, so that the sprite will become more opaque instead of less opaque. The show or hide blocks can be added to determine when a sprite appears or disappears. I'm just going to add another wait block here to demonstrate both. In cases where more than one sprite overlap, you can specify to which layer a sprite should appear or move to. Here I have 3 different sprites so we can see how the different layers will be affected. We're going to stick with using layer blocks in a sequence of just one sprite, but you can add layers to any one of the sprites you select. With the Go to Front layer, our cat should move in front of the glasses and the basketball. And there you go. We can also use the drop down to move to the back layer and revert it back to its original position. We can also specify how many layers we want our sprite to move forward. In this case, the default is 1, and I'm going to keep it that way since I want the cat to move in front of the basketball, but not the glasses. So we're going to keep it at 1 layer and have it move forward. And in the drop down, we can also edit it and have it move backward. Checking off the costume, backdrop, and size blocks based on number or name will show the selected information of the current sprite or backdrop in the top left corner of the stage. These can also be used inside other blocks and operations, which we'll cover later on.
Let's move on to sounds. These blocks can be used to add or edit sounds and sound effects. But there is also in the upper left corner of the screen a tab labeled Sounds, where we can add sound effects, select or upload sounds, and edit or combine sounds in the Scratch Sound Editor. We can go into the sound library to pick any sounds that we want. The default sound here is a meow, but I want this to sound a little bit slower. I'm going to click this button right here to make it sound a little slower. I can also adjust the volume, mute the clip, have the clip fade in to maximum volume, use the undo button to reverse it, or fade out. I can also reverse the clip, or add a robot effect. The robot effect works a little bit better if you are recording your own sound with your voice and want it to sound like a robot, rather than some of the pre-existing sounds that will sound just a little bit distorted. In this case, I'm going to make a new sound, so I'm going to copy this first section here, and then I'm going to go and choose a different sound and paste it into the new sound. I can also pick sections that I want to remove with the cut or delete button. So now I have my custom sound. You can play around with this little using different songs, sound effects, animals, etc. So we have two blocks here that are meant to start playing our sound, and they are very similar. They both include a drop down where you can select from any one of the sounds that you have stored in the sound editor or record your own. The start sound block will start the chosen sound and immediately move on to the remaining blocks in the sequence while the sound is playing. If we have a start sound block for meow and then several blocks following it, meow will continue to play while that sprite moves. However, if we use the play sound until done, the entire clip will play before moving on to the other blocks in the sequence. So we can see the sprite waited to move until the dog effect was finished playing. We can use the stop all sounds button to stop any sounds even if they are not finished playing. So I have a meow sound ready to go here, and we're going to try changing the pitch. So we can change the pitch by increments. In this case, the default is 10, but that can be changed. So that when the sound plays, the pitch will increase by an increment of 10. Just for comparison, this is the sound without any pitch change. And then once we add this block, you can tell it is a little bit higher. In order to lower the pitch, we can use a negative value to make the sound deeper. We can also set the pitch to a specific effect. In this case, we'll use 150, and you can tell that that's very high pitched. A lower value means that the sound will have a deeper pitch. We can also increase or decrease the volume by a certain increment. In this case, the default is that if we were to adjust by -50, which would lower the volume, you can tell that it's quieter. A positive number would increase the volume. Similar to other blocks, we can also set the volume to a specific point. 100% will be the original volume from the sound scratch editor. 150 would make it louder, and less than that will make it softer. We can also check this volume here to check what level of volume our sprite is at. Similar to the checks from the look blocks, later on, these can be used inside operations.
Don't forget to talk to your teacher during your live lessons if you have any questions.